I'ma get it. You know I be on a what? Yeah. You know I be on a what? Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what? Yeah. It's all hard, ain't no fear here.
What's up, and welcome to another exciting, double exciting, extra special, triple exciting episode of Ride the Rebellion podcast. Maybe even this is a bonus episode. I'm not even totally sure, but welcome to the show. With me today, as always, or I'm your host, Drew Hall, and with me today, as always, is the king of the South Alabama Turndown, the reigning defending lordship of the rebellion, and partial owner of Dale Boyd Sports Management, Dale Boyd.
If I'm a lordship, my business is a sinking ship. I promise you that. There is no way I'm in.
Maybe
the
I
red.
had the wrong letter on
It's
the
a
end of
red.
ship. Maybe there's a
It's a
wrong
definitely
letter on the end of
lordship.
ship.
Yes. What's up, everybody? Every episode is a bonus episode, Drew. By the way,
Yeah, pretty
because
much.
it's a bonus, y'all get to listen to us.
Oh my god, that's why it's lordship. I should have said lordship. He works for Shipped.
That's
No.
no, not a sponsor.
They don't get a sponsorship thing. Today on the show, we're going to talk about that in just 1 second. We'll talk about. I have a hair on my shoulder. It was driving me nuts. Talk about our special guest who's sitting quietly in the corner. We can't do the annoying game of like harassing him as a sponsor yet because he's not officially a sponsor yet until this episode. So after this episode, we can harass him. But prior to that, it's not fair to harass the guy sitting in the chair. But we'll get to that in 1 second. So as always, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors and we'll jump into the show. If you are looking like you need a sleeve on your arm, maybe because you've just eaten a lot of shit and you got a whole lot of scrapes up there, let me suggest Kevin Black. What if I would have gone, let me suggest Run and Try, so you can try a little harder. That's what I should have gone with. Just flip the script all
It would have been better because they have that like butt chafing cream. That's where I thought you were gonna go. He
Head
does
on
have
over
that
to Run and Try and get you some butt chafing cream.
for your sleeve tattoo that you got at Man of War Tattoo. Maybe.
That is
put
not
that on
medical
there.
advice. Do not,
Yeah.
no, do
Kevin
not put,
will tell you, do not put that on your tattoo. Actually,
I wonder what would happen if you did.
I
So
don't
our
know.
next contest, I'm just
Wouldn't
kidding.
get
I'm just
chafed.
kidding. If you get a tattoo and you put butt chafing cream on it, that's
If you get a tattoo,
if you survive, that you win our prize, which is life.
yeah, or just get a tattoo of butt chafing cream.
I told you about the guy that has the right here on his arm. He has a Code Red can.
Oh, yeah,
So he
yeah.
can go, and he does it all the time. He's in the Coast Guard.
Has he ever burned himself with the Pall Mall that he was smoking when he did it?
Probably. Oops, I switched to our guest on accident. So everybody got a preview. All right, well, that's our sponsors. We just wrapped them up into one big swooping thing.
Yeah, they
If you don't know who they are,
Run
then
and try
head
Man of
over.
War.
Well,
Run and try and Man of War.
that's it for now.
There we go.
All right, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into our guest. Our guest is well known in the area. Is it weird when you get the promo about you leading into
Yes.
it? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Makes it better.
Well known in the area. Obviously a fantastic rider, a winning rider if you care about such things. But more importantly to us, he's a community builder. He's a trail advocate, I think would be the best way to put it. And I think he'll explain that in a minute. And he's also the proud papa of his new baby, Summit Bike Academy.
Yes, Summit Bike
Toby
Academy.
Cortez is back in the show with us. Welcome back, Toby.
Oh, thanks, Drew, and thanks, Dale, for having me on. And listen, before we get started, I really got to thank you guys and all y'all do for the community. It is amazing to see what you guys do. It's fun to watch the podcast every single week, but it really is fun. I'm so excited to come out here, and I'm gonna ride y'all trails. I can't wait. That's really gonna be fun. But thanks for having me on, and yes, very, very excited about Summit and the rebranding of my coaching academy. And it's just one of the avenues that I take to try to help and grow the mountain bike community.
Yeah, I've been secretly working on the tagline. When you're ready to take your riding to the peak, Summit Bike Academy. To its peak, Summit Bike
Well, whenever you had the old sponsor and it was Shoot Your Shot, we were actually thinking about naming it Climax. So,
Oh, that would have been better.
Academy. Man!
but we didn't go that way. It's a family.
My bike career would be
bike
over
academy.
way too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God. The entendres, folks, those are free. Those are absolutely free. Luckily, we could put... No one will get that unless you're a male. Or
Well, so our whole audience.
no, we have a 12% change.
12%. Yes. We're trying to push it beyond.
So let's jump into it. So what has last time we spoke, you were building the academy, things were going good. That exists. You've rebranded into a new space. Talk a little bit about the new academy, what you guys are doing with Summit, and just give us a rundown on that side of things.
Sure, absolutely. We were definitely. I was with Dirt Coaster Academy, and we were running with that, and I had a partner, and just had kind of like different visions of what we were going to do with the academy. So came out, rebranded it, and we have new website and a little bit easier to get a hold of us, and we have coaches all across the South. We have a couple coaches in Arkansas, and we're gonna have clinics all throughout the South. And we're really, the tagline is coaching, guiding, and experiences. And we really wanted to kind of focus on that experience. Whenever you come to a class, we wanted to make sure that it was a fun experience and you enjoyed it. Whenever you wanted to go ride trails, even myself as an experienced rider, whenever I go someplace, I'm looking for a guide because I don't want to have to learn the trails. So we definitely have that guiding aspect of it. And then the experiences, and this is something that you guys do. I mean, what does it feel like to really experience mountain biking? It's not just the trails. It's what you go and do getting coffee before. It's what you go and the meal that you get after, the way you go to drink. So some of the things that we planned on doing with the social media aspect is show you where you can go, grab a good cup of coffee before, go grab a good beer and hamburger after. So
it's interesting you bring it up. I talked about it before. I gave a shout out back to the previous. I'll just redub in Summit so we can use that. But it's when I went to Phoenix, and when I rode in Phoenix, I went on a guided tour. And so this guy, Cactus is the name of Cactus Rides. He's going to be on the show at some point.
Very dangerous, by the way, to ride a cactus.
It was not easy. But he was like an old school XC guy the rides out there are gnarly. And some of the stuff they did, there's like a porcupine ride or something that you do at Christmas Day where you ride like 50 miles and it's all the mountain ranges, but there's no traveling to it except by bike. It's brutal stuff. But this guy takes me, so he's very experienced. And he was very complimentary of my riding. He was like, I wasn't sure what to expect. You're from Alabama. And he was like, you're from the beach at Alabama. And that's where I was able to give you guys a plug. Where I'm going with this, the experience though of the guided ride was fantastic. So he gave me a little bit of instruction, not that would anything that would infringe upon me paying for instruction, but enough to help me like settle back in, maybe help me conquer a turn. There's like this nasty turn and a couple of rock drops. And so he would work me through those. But then when we're done, he's like, do you like tacos? And I was like, I love tacos. He was like, do you like carne asada? And he was very specific to your point. And he took me to the best carne asada place in Phoenix. And I would argue that it was probably the best, or wouldn't argue. And we sat down and shared a meal together, and then we talked about business and biking and community. So in that moment, even though the community was just he and I, we shared that. I think it's fascinating that you guys are doing it. It's something that now I told Dale we have a job coming up potentially in New Mexico. I was like, if I'm going out there, I'm going to find a guide and I'm going to hit a ride up. I think it's amazing that you guys are offering that all over the Southeast because there's incredible riding from shore to shore, basically.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it begins at Boca Chica. I mean, if somebody's coming from up north and they're coming to ride Boca Chica, I mean, we can give guided tours there because you don't know where all the hot spots are. Right. And we're very, very privileged at Boca Chica to have so many different features that it would take you 2-3 days to ride everything and session everything. So that guided aspect, and then of course with all of our people in Arkansas, I mean they're building 2, 3, 4 miles of trails a week, and so they know all the hot stuff. But it's really and to have somebody to be able to run the line before you. I mean, this afternoon we're going to ride the trails, and I'm looking forward to having Dale. I don't know those lines. I don't know your lines, but it's so cool to be able to sit on his wheel, and I'm going to enjoy the trails even that much more.
Yeah, it's cool for you. It scares the shit out of me when you're that close. No, actually, I like it, but I mean, I really have been met. Yeah, so having met you at Bogue Chitto, to put it full circle, I met you in the parking lot there. It was like pebbly and gravelly and not much to it.
I think he had spandex on that day.
I did.
He did. But I had like a busted up face from digging post holes, so it was fair.
Yeah.
But having seen the progression of everything, I feel like what you're doing with Summit is just a microcosm of everything you're doing on a grander scale. Having been able to see the progress so far, and I'll give you mad props for it.
Oh.
Like we said, I don't know if you listened to the other previous podcast, but we said we are the moonshiners. And you're like Anheuser-Busch. Like,
Yeah. It was the gag was like,
was like-
we're the moonshiners and you're like a legit whiskey company. Like, like we're still selling moonshine. We have a pretty good recipe, but it's moonshine. But we can't take it to the masses.
no.
Toby can take it to the masses. You're the
Right.
Buffalo Trace. We're the two drunks in the woods.
Oh man.
But you need the drunks in the woods just as much as you need Buffalo Trace. It's a
Absolutely.
fair trade-off.
Absolutely. I both are fun, and both are definitely is what the sport needs. And I'm trying to take Summit, and really, it's all about people enjoying themselves. And one of the key things that with Summit that I found in teaching is that like I've really went out and tried to perfect my craft. And so like every time, not only do I get a guide, but every time I go to a bike park, every time I go to a different area, who's your best coach around? I want to spend 4 hours with them and try to refine my craft of teaching. And what's really cool is, this past weekend I had a clinic and we had 6 people, and I had some people that were advanced, and I had a 9-year-old. And to try to be able to teach all of those people and have all of those people enjoy themselves was really a cool experience. And so, I think we really have something. We have the formula that everybody can have fun with and push the sport forward. We just want people to enjoy themselves on their bike.
It's kind of interesting you bring up the community in that way, though. If you think about it, or the age range, I mean, if you're really talking about community, that's what it is, right? It has to represent everybody. It can't just be the selective badasses that bring the best beer to the park or whatever. It's got to be that 9-year-old who better not be bringing beer to the park. Maybe depends on what state you're
He
in.
might be a moonshiner.
That's fair enough. But whether it's that 9-year-old or it's the adult rider, like that range represents the community. And it's interesting that you're putting in that much effort. Even your own teaching is going towards community building, which I think is, I mean, seriously, that's not a fluff up of who you are. Like, it's legit who you are. Like, that's not me being obsequious, to use my toilet paper word.
So my sports management degree, back to it, we took a class in college called Lifetime Sports.
Yeah.
Cycling is a lifetime sport.
Yes.
Like, it's the first very technical thing you learn as a child. And it's something you can take all
Except
the way
for
to
my
the grave.
kids.
Yeah. But it's something you could take all the way to the grave with you, right, as a cyclist. And so, like, spreading that joy from across generations. And you do a lot of family stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of family events you do. So if you want to, you could pick up on that, but
Sure.
the family classes are pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the coolest thing by far, because so many people are raising their kids and they're paying for lessons for their kids, and they have to sit in the bleachers and watch their kids. This is something that we're having fathers and sons and daughters and fathers and the moms all come together and they're enjoying it together, and to be a part of that, it is probably the most coolest thing that I do, is to be able to allow those families to have true family time together, because they're going to enjoy it there, and then they're going to go talk about it, for a couple of days after, and they're going to, and just that connection, man, it's amazing.
It's interesting because it's from a marketing perspective. If people have fun doing something, they're going to talk about it. But like literally, as a business, word of mouth is the best advertising on the planet. But if you're having someone have fun, then they go turn around and tell somebody. So if they come from class, so even for your business growth, it's brilliant. Because what I think is interesting is if you start with teaching people to ride, then as all of us go, because it's a natural progression. You can find, I'm going to use our trail system. We don't have something quite like Bogachitta, not Rebs, our public
South.
trail system. South. That's the only one we have Blakely, but I would argue that's a little advanced. But what happens with a rider is they come out, they're not trained yet, right? They ride on South trails. They probably eat shit a few times because the routes suck and it's slick and it's hard. It's tight. It's a different type of riding. They do that a few times. Maybe they take a class eventually. That gives them the moxie, right? Now they have the moxie, and then they go ride Blakely, and then eventually they beg to join the Rev. or
Kiss the feet.
They eventually are like, I'm going to Bogachitta. I'm like, have fun. Just be careful. But what's interesting is the same pattern happens. The home trail leads to eventually somebody wanting to find new trails. And where I was going with the marketing, I think is genius that you're doing is not only is Summit doing this idea of just trail side, you're like in terms of riding and coaching, but you're moving into trail advocacy. And can you speak a little bit about that side of things? Because like it's a natural progression to go from,
Sure.
I want to ride more shit. Where can I go? And then it's like, don't worry, guys, we got you covered there too.
So I started at Bogachita and started kind of putting my toe in developing that mountain bike park, and it's been a huge success. And a bunch of people will come and tell me and say, okay, I want to do this in my area. I want to do this in my area. And then that evolved into a consulting business that we're in Tuscaloosa right now. We're in Ruston right now, and we're consulting on building mountain bike parks. And what's really, really cool is that we're trying to make it accessible to everybody. And the things that they're doing in Ruston is going to blow people's mind. And whenever we talk about that community, some people look down upon this, but we're spending a lot of money on building a hub. And this hub is going to be 10 foot off the ground. It's going to be stone around it. It's going to be the first in the world that has a waterfall coming off of it.
Sick.
It's going to be cool. And we're going to have bridges going down. And, and that's a place that people are going to, during the trails, they're going to stop and they're going to talk and they're going to communicate. And it also exposes people to mountain biking, because the waterfall is going to be facing the road driving up. And so like everybody who's coming into the parks, I'm like, what is that? And so it's going to, entice more people to come into it. So, that's what we try to do whenever we're trying to design a mountain bike park, is to try to make it inviting and inclusive. And so we have the green lines, we have the blue lines, we're going to have some black lines. And so it's going to be a really, really cool park. And that's what we try to do whenever I'm going in and I'm trying to design the thing in Tuscaloosa. We're going to try to design a true pump track for everybody. Because if you've ridden these pump tracks, some of these pump tracks are like Velo Solutions, they're steep. And not everybody can ride those. So we're going to have sections of the pump track that goes all the way from a little bitty baby, intermediate, and then to more advanced. So kind of trying to take things and really try to make everything all inclusive and inviting.
I think it's cool because it's one of the things that I wish, and I haven't been there. I'm not trashing it by any means, but it seems like Walden Ridge, which is the new one up in Chattanooga, is not quite, my understanding, it's not necessarily quite as inclusive. And so it's got a high entry fee to get in. So in terms of skill level. And so the thing is that's a great park. A lot of people going, I remember it happened at Ride Beeham. You had a lot of people show up at Ride Beeham that maybe that was not quite to their skill level yet. And I haven't been there, but it's interesting that you're offering that so people can at least home trail and scale up, as opposed to you must be this tall to ride this ride. That can be kind of damaging. There should be those trails. I'm not saying I'm anti that, but if you don't have enough of the little stuff, you're not going to see much of a community grow, because after a while it's the same bit over and over again. And I think it's something interesting. And I have a follow-up I'll hit up with that. But what is your take on that? I mean, is that a fair statement, or am I just talking out of my ass as normal?
You do normally talk out of your ass.
Yeah, that's correct.
But this is okay.
I got a microphone up here this time.
That's an absolute fair statement. And the thing that I did whenever I came in and designed Bogachita was one of the first features we built was the Tower of Terror. And so that is a humongous drop. So that brought some attention, and that brought all the big time players that wanted to come play and play ball. They had something. But at the same time, we had baby courses. And so like you definitely have to have a low barrier to entry to ride your park to make it truly attractive, because 5% of your riders are green, 5% of your riders are black, and everybody else is blue. And so like
that's a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good stat to know. For real.
So if you want people to enjoy mountain biking, you got to build it accordingly.
Yeah, there is something to be said. Like we've talked about it, and certain other sides of it. There's something to be said with the idea, for me, that's interesting to know that stat. Like I'll hit black lines or certain pieces. Like black lines in Phoenix are a totally different beast, because I don't have a lot of experience on that kind of rock mixed with sand. The sand part's easy, because that's what Jankfest is.
We got
We got that for days, baby.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you have this jagged death stick poking out of it that's not going to break when you hit it. It's going to break you. Made a little bit tricky. So it's interesting to know that, like, at least for me, like I fall into that blue category universally, right? Because there's even some blue that I've hit. I'm like, hey, that pushes me a little bit, and I'm going back to training, right? It kind of reinforces that side. And it's always nice to come off of a green and just feel like you're the best in the world. Even if you're an advanced rider, those easy ones.
Yeah.
That's the Dale Boyd custom trick right
That's
there.
I'm throwing turndowns on every green trail. because
I'm gonna start calling you the king of the green turn down.
the green trail turned
Yeah,
down.
the green trail
So
turned down.
what I think, and I think we've talked about this before, but like advanced riders are going to have fun on everything, right?
Yeah.
They're going to make their fun no matter what. So I think like what you did with the Tower of the Terror is pretty rad because, and I had never heard that story, but like doing that first sets the bar of like, listen, guys, I'm here to build some rad stuff, not just baby stuff. But if you want to help, we'll ride the baby stuff until the rad stuff gets built. And I think that's a good perspective because we're doing it here. We went private because we couldn't do it publicly, but we get so much pushback from the previous people. Or like the guys that built these trails, we've been doing it for 30 years. Like, okay, cool, but they're not.
But
that
that's
cool.
30 years.
It evolves.
Right.
So,
Like,
so I have a
yeah, did you
legit
have a
question
problem
that
with
maybe
that?
well, I have a legit
Yeah.
question that maybe you've found on your own. If you go ride a trail that was built 30 years ago, that was built, hand trails like we do. We're still analog in that way. Let's say even then, it doesn't matter. You go ride this old trail 30 years ago. The bike technology used at that point was different. The bike size was different. Wheel size was different. Everything in the bike world was different. So they rode different. Are you seeing now that like, have you guys had to update trails? Are you seeing any of that kind of world where it's like, you look at these trails and you're like, damn, this does not ride good on a 29. Have you run into that at all?
So you know what actually is really, really cool is like, you know, what's old is new now.
Yeah.
And so like what a lot of people in the trends that we're seeing in the industry of what they're trying to trail build is actually some of that old school tight, you know, one of the latest trails in Arkansas and Bentonville, you know, is hand cut hollow, and so the whole thing is to get back to hand cut. And actually, the park that we're doing up in Ruston at Lincoln Parish Park, they were famous for a 10-mile loop. They had the cross country nationals there, and so it was a really famous cross country loop that was tight and rooty. And that by itself is fun and cool. But now that we're coming in and building the flow stuff, and you can ride both of those things in the same day, then it goes like, oh, wait a minute, this is cool.
Yep.
But to have just one of those things, and you can ride those things a lot faster with the modern technology. Yep. Now, the wide handlebars gets in the way sometimes.
Yep.
That was actually my last wreck was I hit a tree. But no, it's the modern bikes actually allow you to enjoy those trails even more, I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sweet because of like Tails. Have you ridden at Tails at Oak
Yes.
Mountain? That trail is machine cut, but it feels like hand cut, right? Because it's so narrow.
Yeah.
Like it's not wide as a golf cart trail. I call the other ones. Like Lightning is fun at Oak Mountain,
Yep.
but it's wide.
Yes.
Like you have room for air. And I think that is, I mean, I'm a tight trail guy. Anybody that's ridden any trail I've ever built, they're like, "What? This is stupid."
Yeah, you have one that the only guy I've ever seen zip down it fast
Toby.
is Toby.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he just was like, oh, let me try it one more time. And then he's like, and 3 seconds later. It was like a slalom skier going through there. I think it's interesting, though, because the bike park stuff, those big, wide spaces, again, comparing to what I've ridden out west, and that experience is totally different because it's all wide open out there, but it's still narrow trails. They didn't build these big, wide pieces. So there's something to be said. There's some pleasure in my brain, though, about a big, wide, like when you're hitting that big, wide trail, there's just some joy of having that. Maybe because our shit is so
Safety.
tight all the time.
Yeah.
It is safer for sure. But it doesn't feel as fast.
No.
And my
Right.
thing is I like to feel like I'm a Star Wars nerd, so a bike is a speeder bike to me, and I'm like flying through the woods of Endor like Star Wars. That's all I want.
Huh?
That's all I'm after.
What?
Yeah, nerd.
I'm a geek, and so like last time I was on the show, I talked about a little bit about this too. But I think as humans, we love, and especially as males, we love because we used to run through the woods to catch
Snipe,
our
right?
meals,
Catch
and
snipe.
that feeling of going through the woods with the trees going by. I think
It's primal, right?
It really is primal, and I think we enjoy it. I enjoy going through trees. I go right out west, and it's wide open. I'm like,
Yeah.
But go up on the East Coast, and that tight stuff through the trees is awesome.
Where have you ridden? Have you ridden anywhere recently that's like, because I heard a couple of things. One, I heard from a couple different riders. We won't say names.
No.
They were just bitching about Bentonville. Now, I'm not asking you to defend it. This is their opinion. You have yours. But they were like, man, it's all, quote, sanitized.
Commercialized.
Yeah.
Commercialized, sanitized. So, and I fight for that whenever I'm designing trails too, because the concept of what we talked about is that you really need the barrier of entry to be low so more people can come into the bike. So mom and dad doesn't go mind riding with the kids. And what Bentonville has done, and Gary Vernon and all those guys, I'm a great friend of Gary, and they've really done a great job. But it is a little bit commercialized, and they are pushing the envelope with Hancock Hollow and some of the other places. You just kind of got to know where to ride in Bentonville. And so I think they have all of it. And some people are like kind of disappointed that they had to like put bridges over all the drops and all of those things. But, so many people are riding that area. They had to do that. So, and I think Bentonville is really starting to move towards a little bit more risky in some areas. And you've kind of like, if you go drive an hour away from Bentonville, some of that stuff is getting really, really cool. Centennial Park just made a pretty big expansion that was really, really cool. And then, Lake Leatherwood is a 45-minute drive from Bentonville. We always go to Lake Leatherwood whenever we go down there, and that gives you a little bit more of the real feel of
but in fairness to your point, if 5% are green and 5% are black, and you're looking at a massive trail system like Bentonville, then what's everything else? It's a lot of blue. And so that maybe, I think it goes back to the same thing, though. I'd argue that maybe someone who went up there that felt that way maybe didn't take enough time to find the community to be like what we said earlier. Find me the guide, or just find somebody. Be like, hey man, I'll buy you a 6-pack if you'll just show me where do you guys ride. Like, just be simple.
Or you could just go to summit.com and find a guy.
See,
There you go.
See, there it is.
Perfect. The promo.
Perfect layup.
Or more importantly, like it's what has happened is somebody that knew about Bentonville used to like to go there when they were a garage band.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're now mainstream, and it's like, there's people all over at these concerts now. And like, I can't get to the front where I used to. I just want to go back to like I'm punk rock. Like I was the only one listening to you guys before you sold out. That whole feeling of that idea. But again, Bentonville, and I don't know this, but they could have used that philosophy that you're saying as like, let's build some gnarly shit, get everybody riding.
Yes.
And then be like, hey.
But like the
now
Hancock
everybody
Hollow,
can.
from my understanding, is like, I mean, it's. Have you ridden it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
How is it?
Oh, it's awesome. Actually, on the website, there's a pretty cool. Whenever you see the logo, the background is actually Hancock Hollow,
That's
and
sick.
it's us going through a valley. But I have the privilege of actually two of my coaches actually live there. So every time I go, they know the hot spots, and they know all of those things to go to. So Bentonville for me, because I have that built-in guide, is always a unique experience because we're kind of getting away from the crowds.
But arguably, that's like the place that I'm talking about where if I'm going to Bentonville, I'm not going to just go up there and knuckle turd around by myself, right? Even if I'm solo up that way. There was a job at one point, I was trying to get Dale on it with me. We were trying to bid on this job that was literally going to take us to Bentonville, Arkansas to film the exterior of a Family Dollar or some shit. And I didn't care how much it cost. Like, I was like, I'll do the job for free if you just pay for me to go up. But the idea was we get up there and then we find somebody to show us around, a guide, such as in this case, now we have you guys. But why would you not do that? Because I would rather go to the fun places like, hey guys, we're going to hit all the touristy spots first, do the famous trails, America's Trail, whatever it is, all American Slaughter Pen, right? Let's hit the famous trails, and then let's maybe go find some stuff that you guys might be like. I would rather that experience. A tailored experience is much more valuable to me than you have 3 days in Bentonville and you rode the same shit 3 days in a row. That might get a little old.
Do you also think that Bentonville is kind of like an iPhone? An iPhone is compared to every single other phone.
No, it's
right?
fair.
So you go to Bentonville expecting that it has everything that you could ever want, right?
Yes.
With no flaws. But wait, this place over here has this. Yeah, but it doesn't have all this. You know what I'm saying? Like the iPhone might not have photo erase or whatever Google Pixel just came out with, but
that's
not
more
a sponsor.
nerdy than me.
I know.
He is nerdy.
It's because I spend time like erasing my face off of things. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that maybe some people go there with an expectation like Bentonville better be the best place I've ever ridden when they compare every place they've ridden to one place.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
A couple of things is that, like, whenever we get families that want to come in and do guiding, I mean, Bentonville is a cool place because it really is easy to get a family to have a great experience. Even if one of those family members is somebody who wants to shred, we can guide that experience. But some of the other places, I mean, like Knoxville right now is just blowing up. I mean, it's really, really cool. And anybody who's listening to us from Knoxville, we're not just pro Bentonville, we are pro Knoxville because we're pro mountain biking. And that's another place that's just absolutely amazing to ride. They have some really, really cool things there too.
Well, Aaron Gwynn just bought
Windrock.
Windrock.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's massive. You got a pro downhill guy owning a bike park? I mean, come on.
And I tell you what, that's where I cut my teeth 20 years ago and learned how to downhill. It's kind of like chilled out a little bit, Windrock, but Windrock is a special place for me. We used to go at least once a month to go riding at Windrock, and we didn't have the equipment we have today. You're giving me chills talking about Windrock, man.
Yeah. It's look, I love Tennessee riding is my favorite. That's like out of everywhere I've been fortunate enough to ride. And I haven't ridden like Colorado yet, but it's my favorite because the diversity of trails in Tennessee is amazing. North Alabama has some cool stuff, and I haven't done Pisgah, but like for me, again, what I've experienced in the chunk of time that I've been riding that area, I mean, you get a range, and I think that's really important. And I've taken people that were not as experienced and they had a blast. And then I've taken some more experienced guys with me and we had a super good time. So like across the board, it made it universally fun. And then when you're done, there's this great culture that exists in Knoxville. Now I'm not a UT fan by any means. I'm a Roll Tide, but at the same time, there's a great college towns have an epic culture. There's going to be pizza and beer for you all day. Great places to eat. Same in Chattanooga. Same when you start getting over into all the parts of North Carolina and that space.
Asheville's amazing.
Asheville's nuts.
Yeah.
So all of those little communities are there. So now the experience is that much more awesome. You ride hard and you eat hard.
You know what's sweet about those communities though? Like we travel to those types of places and we are all three of us are building small microcosms of those places where we live, right? Like, hey, let's let that influence our local trails so that we can have something that you may not ever go see in Bentonville or Asheville, but hey, check this out, ride this, like the Tower of Terror, right? So like there's different things that I think are really cool about being an advocate for the trails like you have or we have. And there's something that we can share to other people that might not translate like obviously. You know, like I'm not going to say, Drew, look at this berm. It's just like the one in Nashville. But it could be, you know, like it could be inspired by that. And we talk about it a lot, how you and I take inspiration when we go on rides other places. It's not just riding. It's looking at things. And do you do that? I assume you do that a lot.
Oh man. Well, I mean, the whole origin of Bogachita was, you know, me and Steve, we would ride all across the country and it would take us 2 or 3 days to kind of get warmed up. So we wanted a place that people could come and actually learn some of the base skills. So whenever you go out of town, and that's what you guys are doing here, and that's what we're doing down in Bogachita, and that's all about people enjoying mountain biking more. If they can come in and really learn the base skills that they need, that's why we've imported all the rocks that we have. That's why we build the big jumps, you know, because whenever you go to a bike park, it doesn't take you long to adjust to that like it used to whenever Steve and I would 20 years ago going to Windrock. And we
Hell, I built something at the Reb because of something you guys have at Bogachita, the wall. I couldn't come off of it at an angle, so I built a berm that I have to come off at an angle. So
That's awesome.
And I did this year. Went back to Bogachita.
But we have the same thing like with Chris at the last time we was there. Chris had not ridden any rocks, and when it came up to stage 4 was the first introduction of rocks that year that we were there, or I was there. And when it came to the rocks, Chris, God love him, Chris T, he chicken shitted and wouldn't do it. And obviously we saw Bill eat it, but like Chris wouldn't do it. And he asked for a rock garden. So when we came back, like he was motivated. So we did the same thing. We got lucky and found some of those rocks so we built stuff for him to practice on in his riding. He's gotten better off going off rocks. So it's interesting that every trail benefits another if you're looking to add something. You know what I mean? Like it's a growth pattern for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody is up in their game, up in their level, and it's just great for mountain biking and, you know, the different things that we're doing. We definitely appreciate you guys coming to our festival. We actually we increased by 70% this year.
Oh, that's a big
awesome. Yeah.
Everybody, like all the promoters I'm talking to, they're down 40, 60%, and then we were increased by 70%. But that's part of it, to have those festivals, to have those people coming back. And of course, Summit is thrilled to be able to support those kind of things. And that was a really cool experience. And
It was awesome.
you were a little bit of a celebrity yet. Man, you should have came.
I couldn't.
He
I was
didn't even
working.
have to
I
tell
was
people
working.
now that,
I didn't say a word about
he
the
didn't have to
podcast.
say people, hey, I got a podcast.
Not a
People
word.
knew.
Yeah.
It was
unique.
awesome.
And actually, Jake was like, why do people know who I am?
The best is anytime it's happened. It happened in Birmingham.
Oh, yeah, Todd.
They had the bullshit tent, and Chase, Dirty Uncle Chase, was nice enough to do the request of blue M&Ms or whatever the hell, yellow M&Ms, whatever it was.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was stupid. They were sitting there for it as a
Hot
joke.
Dasani
2 bottles
water.
of hot Dasani water specific, and we make this joke, and they did. But it's the same thing. Like we get up there with Todd, and people are like, "You're the Todd," and he's like, "That's me." That's not how he talks. That's not even fair. He's gonna beat my ass. But it was still one of those things of like, it's fun to have this little community. So we have like this great little. We have a community building in Louisiana, and now you have South Alabama, you have North Alabama. We're getting into Tennessee more, and then if we can get into Georgia more, and that. Once that little network forms and everybody is kind of sharing that space more frequently, just imagine now all of a sudden the Southeast is back to being defined as a big community. I think that'd be epic.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that we're doing in Summit, we're partnering with we have different partners. And one of the partners we have is Transition Bikes.
Sick.
And so Transition Bike, and look, I used to ride Transitions back in the early 2000s. And, before I partner with somebody, it's going to be the right partnership. These guys are riders first. I got to shred with them at Howler Bike Park. It was amazing. These guys, I was like, oh, but these guys were awesome. And they build bikes that are fun. So I'm like, you know what? This is a bike company that I want a partnership with. And they're, talking about building the South, they're actually coming to Boca Chica on the 12th. And they're going to bring their fleet of bikes and you can come out and ride them.
Sick.
And so it's like, for a big bike manufacturer like that to actually, come to the South and have a demo day is pretty cool.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I feel like in this part of the South, like the lower half, it's where there's not mountains. We're trail guys that have built features. The fact is that we don't get a lot of those demo days. Every once in a while we'll hear about one from Pivot, maybe
Pivot does a
over
lot,
in
yeah.
Pensacola. But they're the only ones that do it.
Yeah.
And and I'm not knocking LBSs, but we've said it before. Sometimes our frustration through our small network is that some of our LBSs don't offer any kind of demo days either. And so I don't need to demo a bike in a parking lot. I need to demo a bike on a trail.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then that's brilliant. So that's awesome for Transition to commit that level is fantastic. I mean, that's a huge step forward in that space.
We're looking forward to that. And I continue to try to grow the community. And, we got another partnership with Trio Behind Bars. Those kids, they ride
Monsters.
all over the country. If you don't follow them, definitely you want to watch their videos. But what's cool is that, the confirmation of what we're doing is actually something that's significant. These guys, they ride all over the country. And so I called them up and said, hey, we got a bike fest. Would you guys come? And Sean, the dad, unbelievable guy, him and Katie, they're unbelievable parents. I wish my parents drove me around in a van riding trails. But, I think they were in Vancouver, and he's like, hey, y'all want to go down to Louisiana, or do y'all want to go to Vermont? That was the two choices. And the kids were like, let's go back to Louisiana.
Oh, man.
I mean, stop and think about that for a second,
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, over Vermont. Vermont
yeah.
has mountains.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bike park in Vermont.
Yeah,
you know?
there's
Yeah.
that also those religious named trails up there too. They're really popular. I can't remember all
I
of them.
can't
Sister Act?
It's not Sister Act, the trails.
That'd be a good trail name, though.
Yeah, we might have to try that. You had mentioned something. And again, I'll let you give me the look, and I'll just drop the question. But you had mentioned something about you and Steve having ridden together for a while. Documentary. Can we talk about it for a second at all?
Sure.
Only because I don't want to go into too much, but
Well,
you told me some stuff that I got gooses just thinking about it because it's such a bro story. It's so heavy and it's so beautiful with the culmination essentially being Boca Chica. Not to ruin the doc, but can you give me anything on it at all?
well, So, Steve and I will probably come and give you some more details. Maybe we'll come
Tease it
back
up. We'll just
tease it up. But
We've been teasing up Summit for
so,
weeks.
So,
Yeah.
so it's a pretty cool story. You know, Steve and I, years and years ago, we just kind of ran into each other and we became bros. And then there was a little bit of a tragedy that happened in both of our lives, and we kind of had to give up mountain biking. And then at the same time, we came back into mountain biking, and Boca Chita was the reason why that happened. And the filmmaker out of New Orleans wanted to do a documentary. I think they call this a micro budget
Yes.
documentary.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
So no high expectations, but it's a cool story. And we finished filming. Probably got one more round of edits, and then we're going to score it. And so hopefully at the beginning of next year, that'll come out. And the reason why I agreed to do the project was I just want to promote mountain biking, and hopefully it just promotes mountain biking a little bit more.
So that was a tee up for did Boca Chita, did Summit, this idea of Summit, did it come first? Or did Boca Chita come first? Back to you and Steve's thing, this love of mountain biking that connected you guys, brought you back together. I know a little bit more of the story. We'll let y'all talk about it once the movie comes out. It sounds amazing. Was Summit always there, or was Boca Chita there, and then Boca Chita goes, wait a second, and then that led to Summit? Like what's the origin story of?
Sure. So
I don't think we've ever asked that. Have we ever asked that? I don't think we have.
So I got to have a plan, and everything that I go into is like, am I going to devote my time into something, because I'm taking time away from my family. So am I going to devote time away from something that's going to be successful? And so early on, I was like, you know what? We've got the demographics around it. There's 1.2 million people around Boca Chita within an hour and a half that really don't understand what mountain biking is. And so we were able to expose them. And then so as I'm developing that plan, one of the pillars was to create something that could educate people to ride mountain bikes. So that was kind of the origins of that. So in the original design of Boca Chita, 4 years ago now, that was the genesis of what became Summit.
That's interesting. I didn't know if one led to the other, if it was a queue up effect, and that makes sense because it was. And where do you see? So as you guys are kind of growing, I mean, it's really a brand extension. It's a rebrand, is what it really is. It's been the same. It's the same architecture. You've added new coaches. We talked about that. How far is your reach on coaching now? Like where are you? Like what's the reach that we can see?
I mean, we're talking to folks. We're talking to a couple of different coaches. We've got the infrastructure for coaches to come on, and it'll be a little bit easier. They of course got to be able to give that experience that Nina and I gave, and then that I give right now, because we want somebody to be able to have that experience. So you can be the best shredder in the world. If you're not a personable person that's people going to enjoy to be around, we're not looking for that. And then, we also are going to be looking for, somebody who can really detect errors, because everybody thinks they can coach. And I thought I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be easy. But you look at somebody and you're like, wait a minute. I have no idea how to tell you to get that right. And so like over time, it's like, okay, now I understand how to not only detect errors, but how to get you to improve those errors. And so like, we're looking for those people, but I would definitely envision something out of the South, going all the way to North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, kind of staying in that area. And we have some people that have reached out, and so we're starting those conversations. But right now it's in Arkansas, and then I'm traveling. We're doing in 2 weeks. We're doing something in Tuscaloosa. And what another like I'm trying to grow the sport. My passion is to try to grow the sport. And so there'll be the local bike shops is something that I see as just a gym that we have, and I'm trying to keep promoting those. So, whenever we go in Ridgeland and Bike Revolution, I mean, Jeremy is amazing, and I try to partner with him and try to give his shop some exposure too. So we're doing that with Velo City Cycles in Tuscaloosa.
Sick.
We're actually gonna have in their parking lot. We're gonna pull the jumps out. In their parking lot, we're going to do like a kind of a festival. We're going to have 2 different sessions, and we're going to pull these crazy bikes out and do crazy bike races and all. But, trying to build that community around the local bike shops too is something that I'm trying to do with Summit also.
I mean, again, that goes back. Those are all the off-trail hubs that need to exist anyway. Not to mention like what they are. Like it's important in that space. Do you feel like though, as a coach now, like obviously you humble yourself to the coaching. I've told other people this when I went through it, is you have to humble yourself to the idea, despite arguing with it. But do you find that you keep? I mean, it seems like a lot of times there's two parts to this question. One, men seem to be the less receptive at first. Is that a fair statement?
Oh my, yes. I'm one of them too. But,
I am too.
oh my, yes.
So men are less receptive. So there's that challenge. How do you address that challenge? And then the follow up to that would also be that, I guess for me, it's the idea that, we can humble ourselves to take the course, but then it doesn't mean anything if you don't practically apply it. And so it's not just about riding. I mean, you've got to practice it to some extent. So could you maybe how do you break down that wall of like, listen, you shitheads, like how do you get through that so you don't run into that conflict?
So like I get a bunch of couples and they're like, hey man, my wife has to come take lessons. I'm like, that's awesome. Why don't you come support her and take the class with her? It would be really, really easy if you come and inevitable. I mean, every single time it always happens where both of them are like, wow, that was awesome. That was a great experience. I really, really learned. And, but I've always said this from the get-go, the women that I have in the class pick it up a lot faster than the guys because we have these preconceived notions. We don't need to be taught because we understand, we know everything already. And man, ever since I've, put my toe into this, I've become such a better rider because, just as the mountain bikes have evolved and the technology and the angles and the suspension, just as that has evolved, the teaching techniques has evolved just as much. So it definitely is a challenge. I had a couple of times where the husband actually left the class because he wasn't picking it up and his wife was.
Oh, and you got a little rage quit.
Yes. So I actually warn people to that now. And like, look, but if, and what's so funny too is a lot of people are like, hey, I want to come coach with you. Like, why don't you come see a class? And these are experienced riders that have been riding for 25 years and they walk away and like, I had no idea.
Right.
And I had no idea how to break it down like that. And all of that stuff made sense. And then you built it back up and it's like, wait, all of this makes sense. And it, so they're kind of blown away by it. So if people can humble themselves and come, I always tell people, like, if you don't have fun in a class that we do, I will give you your money back. I'll pay you more than you paid me because I know you're going to have fun.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that what people don't understand, and you teach this well in class, and it's with every single sport. If I want to jump that double, it doesn't start with pedal up and jump that double, right? There's steps that you have to build on. Like there's a foundation when we're teaching our kids how to play a sport. Now I coach a lot, and I've coached varsity sports, but you have to start with a foundation, and then start every time you start with that foundation again, right? Like go back to practice. So like say that when you go back to practice after you've been taught it, start at that same foundation.
The foundation is the key. And just like you were saying, like if you come to a class and the next time you try to apply those things is in a trail again, you lost. Mm-hmm. It takes a couple of cones and it takes your driveway. Mm-hmm. And that's why most of the time, I teach, like this past weekend, I taught in a parking lot. It's because you take all of those different elements because you got to practice those and it's got to become second nature. Whenever you're going through a turn, you can't think about all the things that you get, you've got to do. You just got to do it. And so practicing, and I think, having the parents and come in with their kids, and the kids understand that they got to go practice, and then it's making the parents go back and practice. You can come take another class. You can come take the next level class, but go practice it for a bunch of hours before you come back.
Yeah. Did you ever find? I remember when I first started riding, I was watching mountain bike videos, and same old thing. Everybody does it to some extent. Coming back in, I was watching videos, and it ended up being like this. And I'm not going to say who, but the one rider and he's known, was very like aggressive. This is my way. I don't care what other coaches are going to tell you. This is the only way that he was a douche noodle about it. And then I watched another one that was contrary to him. And then I went to a trail and somebody's like, hey, you're riding your bike totally wrong. Well, this is the way that I learned to do it. Do you run into that? Like, how did you select? Because I always thought it was fascinating. The stuff I learned from you was reinforced what somebody else taught me. And I don't think they took their class from you first, but they taught me stuff. So like when I started writing, I started learning stuff that then was the same thing. It reinforced what you told me. How did you select your criteria or your curriculum basically to put it together?
Sure. I
Or
mean,
technique, I guess.
It was definitely a long process. And like I said, I mean, every time I went out of town, I would go and I would get another coach. And all of those techniques that they teach are very, very valid. And they're useful. Mm-hmm. And we'll take drops for instance. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go off of a drop. The way I selected my criteria was how to make it safest. What is the least likely method that I'm going to teach that's going to put somebody in an accident or get hurt? and with that, you know, the way that I teach drops is that the way I go off of drops whenever I'm racing is I'm trying to get my tires on the ground as fast as possible. That's not the way I teach. I teach to go off level so you have choices in the air. And that's the safest way if you can go off level instead of pushing down or just dropping down. And it's to give you choices. And the same thing with jumping. You know, I teach the hardest way to jump. It's the least it's the least natural way to jump. But when I teach that, and then it's easier to squash a jump, or it's easier to just go off of a jump. If you got this technique, I teach at that level, you've got the technique, you've got that tool in your toolbox. And then I teach, here are the appropriate times to take that out. You know, because you won't use the jumping technique that I teach every single time. And it's, so that's how I've kind of come up with that curriculum, and it's worked. And because I can, you know, this past weekend, it just keeps on working. The 9-year-old learned just like that 40-year-old learned that's been jumping for a while. And they both were like, that's the way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, after teaching thousands of people, you kind of get that reinforcement of this is how you do it. So,
yeah, I mean, that time proven kind of vibe is way more, especially because you're an aggregate of a lot of, like, you've taken the best of all these and found what works and found the safest. Like you said, you developed your own technique. But the idea that you did pull this aggregate means that it wasn't just somebody's bias. Because I've seen it a lot. A lot of times coaching, at least teaching in any capacity, is you have to humble yourself to the student as well, because they may actually provide feedback that you've never considered before. I have a new guy that works for me that's learning camera stuff, and there's things that I realize he doesn't have a clue about that I take for granted. So I have to stop and slow down. And then it's made me go, oh my God, I haven't been doing that myself.
yes.
Right. And so it's just a good gut check, I think, to flip it around. Do you, so the state of the industry is interesting to me. I want to jump over this because it's,
sure.
I think there's going to be a shift, and I'd be curious to see what you say. Obviously, Chain Reaction closed in the States. And I think I heard even in the UK, we haven't confirmed that, but that's what we heard. That's kind of a big blow. They were a brand that was around. That took distribution of Nuke Proof out of the US, unless somebody else comes by, and Vitus, however you say it. Mm-hmm. But we've seen, like, I know you know economics well. You know a few things about the dollar bill. I mean, we saw the surge of pandemic.
Yeah.
We saw this boom of pandemic the bike boom happened, and then we saw people get loans, and we saw people get money, and then they built a bunch of inventory that didn't pay out, and it's gone the other way. What do you see as the status of it? Because it's not scary for us. We're riders. It's actually good for us. But we also need to make sure that the infrastructure stays in play. What is your take on it currently?
And we need those. I mean, we need those companies to be successful.
Yep.
And they're finding their way right now. You know, I think the pandemic, it was easy and you just overbuilt. Now they have that, and they have, you know, oversupply, and you're seeing prices drop. And you know, what's the interesting thing for me is, where is that direct to consumers in the local bike shops? Where is that going to merge? And where is that going to fit? And because, you know, technology on bikes right now is pretty complicated. So if, and not everybody can work on brakes or suspension or all of those things. So we need those local bike shops. And you're seeing, like, the direct to consumers is actually going to direct to local bike shops. Yeah. So they're giving you an option to ship it to your local bike shop, and then they'll give that bike shop a cut. I think that that's probably one of the best. I'm hoping that is at least what happens, and we don't go into an economy where, you know, it's just low price, direct to consumer, because a lot of bad things can happen on mountain bikes if you don't put them together correctly.
Let me give you not just bad things on the putting together part. I'm a Gorilla Gravity owner. They're out of business. They're gone. They no longer exist on the planet. I know how longer I have warranty support. I have an $8,900 bike that has or $7,900 bike. The wheels, I count the wheels. They're separate. I have support for my wheels, luckily, because we are one still around. But like my bike has no support, no warranty support, nothing ever again. And that frame was a carbon lifetime frame. Gone. Lost it all. So, and then there's some proprietary parts that we run into that. So to your point, I'll never touch, I've told this, I've said it before, I'll never touch a D2C, direct to consumer client. That's just not my jam anymore. It has to go through an LBS. So at least there's some kind of connection to it. Which I think to your point is a brilliant model. Do you think though that with the dip in maybe bike sales, even though I'd argue the economy, I mean, maybe that's an economic standard from the economy side, I would argue now's a good time to buy a bike because they're pretty cheap.
No, absolutely.
Right. But that also then means that trails get to back being important and community's going to start being important and your IMBA chapters and all that stuff is going to start being important. Do you feel like that's the uptick we'll see from it too? I mean, does that make sense?
I mean, I really do. I mean, I really, the way that the modern mountain bike park designers are going in, I mean, I think the popularity of mountain biking is going to continue to rise. And, already some, transition coming in, and there's been some other distributors that are like, you're creating a mountain bike industry in Louisiana that's never been there. And we're creating those things in different pockets. So I think the overall upswing of mountain biking is definitely bullish.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be amazing what's going to happen in the future. There's going to be some rough spots to get through. And I think, I could use my economics background to talk about that, but I think we're in for a
free guys. Welcome to free money chat. I'm just kidding. We're not saying anything about money. This is not a financial. Don't you have to put this big disclaimer?
Oh my God. Well, and then, yeah.
Big disclaimer.
I have a Series 7 license, so I can't say any of that stuff.
And if we start dealing in any bike industries, then we'll get insider trading, and then we'll all be screwed.
No, we're all done.
So,
not to interrupt, but I keep laughing about this because I know we have a long-haired, meat-loving hippie friend from Cannondale that is just sitting there laughing like, yeah, you should have stuck with a big brand because,
I know.
He's
going to talk so much shit to
His
me.
name rhymes with Smixon.
I love him. He was awesome.
He is awesome.
He's a fantastic
I gotta meet him.
Yeah, you will at Jankfest.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
Looking
hopefully.
forward to that.
We're calling him out.
He started riding his bike to get here on time
Oh my God.
because he doesn't drive.
He does not drive. I don't know. I think there's a lot of shifts happening on a bigger scale. Did you watch any of the downhill this year?
Mm-hmm.
Like any of this stuff? What was your take?
What?
Like, I don't care about the race part. I'm curious. I mean, I care about the race mechanics part. What is your take on the switch from them moving? Like, right, yeah, there's the big side.
It didn't feel like he was at home anymore. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Rob, you miss him.
Yeah.
We got to see him at a bike fest. I got to meet him, so it was awesome.
Is he a nice guy?
We were talking about
you hear that, boss?
No. Well, we were talking about the network that took over. So whenever we were talking about that, he didn't have nice things to say about that.
Yeah,
which was totally cool. But no, he absolute wonderful guy. Came up and talked for a while, and it was amazing. But definitely a different feel of watching it. So. I'm hoping they kind of get their foothold, and I'm hoping they can watch it. What's kind of some of the scary thing is that in downhill mountain biking is that they're making the trails a lot faster, and they're not making them a lot less technical. So the risk for injury, I think, we've seen that is going up. So trying to find that balance between what looks cool on TV and keeping those riders somewhat safe. I mean, it's a dangerous sport, but I'm hoping they could find that balance because it sure is fun to watch. I mean, that's a cool sport to watch.
I mean, it's my jam. That's one of my favorite. When the season happens, I get all hyped for it. I did not pay for. It was so expensive to buy it in the States that the only way that I paid for it, or I bought it for 1 month because we all wanted to watch Worlds.
Yeah.
And because that's always like locked behind 16 paywalls. And then we just had a private streaming party, and I just connected it to Facebook and had a private streaming party for everybody else. I mean, some of us know how to do those things. And it was a weekday, I think, even.
Yeah, it was. It was good.
So for us, though, but my concern was I saw guys that a lot of them were complaining, and their biggest point was safety. And it did seem like there weren't as many features to slow them down as much as was encouraging to go faster and faster and faster. And I've watched it with him. I've not watched you race enough, but I've watched it with him. When he gets up there, there's a chemical that happens in his brain, and his eyes change, and that dude becomes not Pleasant Dale Boyd.
It's the
DB is still there, but it stands for douchebag. But he's serious and he's focused on it, and he's going to do whatever he can. He doesn't even care about his body anymore. He just goes. That's what he knows, because that's a real athlete, and I'm sure you're the same case. Not a real athlete, fatleet. Fatleets don't care, right? We have that stops and goes, "Is this going to hurt me from eating pizza?" That's what he said.
If I crash, will gravy spew out?
That's one of the classic Your Mamas, man. That's one of my favorite Your Mamas. But I mean, it's crazy to me to see this stuff. Like, these guys are complaining about it because it's a real thing. You're a downhill guy. You've raced it. Is that? I mean, is that?
No, it's a legitimate thing, and I mean, it's really scary, and that's what, like, whenever I'm riding compared to whether I'm racing, I mean, the risk that I'm taking whenever I'm racing goes up tenfold. And if you don't have these sections that slow you down, and you are constantly on the gas the entire time, I mean, watch these bikes and what the bikes are going through, and holding on to the bikes for that long a period, you don't get any rest breaks. So, I mean, you know, it does become a little bit more dangerous. I think they're going to get to the point where they have a little bit more rest periods, where it's not on the gas the entire time. I think they're going to come to that. But, you know, we've got amazing trail builders, and they're going to continue to do that. But, you know, the problem with biking is that the speeds are not as high as motocross. And so, like, it has to look 1,000 times more. It has to be 1,000 times more gnarly than it actually is. Or it is 1,000 times more gnarly than it actually looks like on TV.
Yeah, right.
Because you get that GoPro effect and you get that TV effect.
Yep.
So they're making some huge things.
I think that they might be making a mistake with the TV, though, because the people that are watching it know how gnarly it is. But then the people that are also watching it thinking that it's not gnarly are like, oh, well, I can do that. So, like,
gosh.
it could be getting people into the sport.
Oh, no, I
not
hope
downhill
not.
racing,
God
but like
forbid.
mountain biking in general.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, that looks cool. Maybe I can progress to that.
I mean, you look at Red Bull
Then they
Rampage,
hire you to teach.
Dude, Rampage looks like butter.
No, Rampage is.
and you see some of the angles and how high those guys are. A 70-foot front flip.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
That's insane.
Well, we all lost it. We watched it together. We lost it.
We were all screaming. I mean, we were screaming like sports, like touchdowns. Like, we're all like, ah!
Yeah.
I mean, having a blast.
And we didn't really understand why Cam won until the side profile picture came out of him backflipping that drop. And we all know how hard it is to drop and a gap. And then the profile of him backflip, like, that's insane.
You were a basketball fan. I can remember when I was a little kid. I'm gonna tell on me. This is kind of a funny story. I used to play baseball, so I used to chew tobacco. And I was hiding from my parents, and I was young. Michael Jordan was doing that dunk from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And whenever he did that, I was like, wow! I spilled everything all over the place. But I had that same wow feeling whenever he did that front flip. Mm-hmm. That was next level. That was just amazing.
So what you're telling me is you spilled the tobacco juice all over?
I did. I did. My mom still doesn't know that.
Good for you. I was about to say, because there's, I have a friend that used to dip for years, and I worked with him. And every once in a while, they're like, your coffee cup and cups. After a while, it's like I was like, you can't use these coffee cups because you'd reach for your, and I never did that.
Oh my gosh!
My brother still dips in his cruiser and everywhere. And
hell no.
All my friends that were all my college friends were athletes, and they all dipped, and I never did. And jumped in my brother's truck one day and was like, "You mind if I have a Pringle?" Just grabbed the can. He's like, that's not Pringles." I'm like, what, dude?
Yeah.
Just come on. Like, what? You have to spit in everything? And my college roommates, 2 of them, had a contest to see who could fill up a 2-liter bottle faster.
That literally makes me
disgusting.
nauseous.
Me too. Oh, you know what? I mean, I didn't know any better back then. I was playing baseball. Everybody did it. But I look back and I was like, that is disgusting. But that was, yeah.
Yeah, that's no bueno 3000. Is there anything like in terms of like places you've ridden recently that you've never ridden? Have you been to what was it, V Hollow up in Gatlinburg, outside of Gatlinburg?
No, I haven't. I'm looking so forward to going.
It's a cool park.
So but V Hollow's not the one with the
no, that's a new one. That's another one.
Gotcha.
That's Ober.
No. You know what? I have been to V Hollow. That's the one with the bridge that goes down. It's a spiral bridge.
Ooh, I didn't see that when I was there.
There was a
No, there's a new lift access park
Oh, cool.
in Gatlinburg.
That's
that's
Ober Mountain.
That's Ober Mountain.
V Hollow is outside of Gatlinburg.
I have not been to V Hollow.
Okay.
I have not
so
been to V Hollow.
It's outside of Gatlinburg. I plug it because it's like Scooby cut those trails.
Yeah. That built tails.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting place, and it's one of those. It's a weird scenario where I can't remember it's a home builder, and their kids were into mountain biking, so they bought the land, donated it, built this. They have a hub. They have a beautiful bike shop on it. It would be
Cool.
There's a big flat area in the front and a skills park that would be a very nice, interesting location for a
Is
class.
it private or public?
It's public and it's free.
What?
Whole thing is free. That's what I'm telling you. It's perfect for.
I have to write that down.
Yeah, the guys up there were super nice. I didn't guide out of there. I would have loved to, but I was with a friend that again, he rides Pittsburgh or rides Pennsylvania, so he's riding some decent stuff.
Yeah.
But we both had a blast. It was
that's
super
awesome.
fun. It's a good spot. I think you would really enjoy it.
No, I think I'm gonna have to reach out to him. We're doing Howler in a couple of weeks too.
Nice.
So getting that partnerships with those parks are fun too.
Yeah. Is there anywhere else you've ridden recently that's where I was going with this? Is there anywhere you've ridden recently that like pops out for you? Like, oh man, you guys got to look at this trail. Cause I mean, you get to experience lots of different spots. And then when you have a class, maybe somebody tells you about the spot, you get to learn the hot spots. And
I mean, if you're going to go, and this is like a classic, and this is like my favorite place in the world to ride is absolutely Moab. Yep. And, if you ever get a chance to do the whole enchilada, you will see every single type of riding on that one trail. So we did that last year, and that's by far the funnest place on earth to ride in my opinion.
Did y'all start all the way at the top?
All the way at the top.
Wow.
So they drop you off at about 10.5, and you climb to 11.5.
Woo!
And it's above the tree line. Then you go through the tree line. It's absolutely amazing. That's like, and it's old school, but it's it's been there for quite a while. But that's hands down probably one of the coolest places I've ever ridden.
Yeah, it's on my list of obviously I think it's on everybody's list to some extent. And from what I've seen about it, and it looks like the experience of it is relatively accessible for. I mean, I think riders of my ability can handle, except for like towards the end.
Towards the end, you get a little exposure.
You
You just go slow and walk some areas.
Yeah, I would be hiking, biking. I have no
I'm
shame
afraid
in
of
that.
heights. I'll be like,
So I hired a guide, of course.
Yeah.
Because
Is that a spot you would suggest that?
Oh my! It's 8 hours. It was an 8
just
hour.
take him.
It was an 8 hour descent. So it took 8 hours just to get down to 8,000 feet.
That is insane.
So it takes a long time. There's a couple of climbs in it, but to try to and it was the third time I had ridden it, but I still hired a guide to just follow their line. They knew it like everything. So following their line, and that guy got really close to the edge a bunch of times. But you just follow their line and it works.
Oh, I don't know,
insane.
man. I don't know. The butthole pucker factor on that. I'd be like, my seat might be bent up like a Coke can when I'm done.
well, the other thing is like I follow people's lines, and like it scares the shit out of me. Like there's always a joke like, don't follow Dale's line. It's not going to end well.
Well, you
Speaking
and and that's funny that you bring that up. As a guide, I really gotta eye people up and figure out what lines they can follow and what lines they can't, because I don't want to look back and they're all mangled. So I've got to try to figure out, because we want somebody that's an advanced rider that's following us to actually if that rider can go off the tower, we're gonna hit lines, or he could hit the big drops or big jumps. We want to show him the speed for that, but it's hard to find that balance of how much do I dumb it down to get this person to follow and have a good time.
You know what's good though? Like having coached for years, I can see this when I go to a basketball court and I'm sitting there in 3 minutes. I can tell. And so you've probably picked up.
Oh yeah.
Like you can tell the nuances of people that don't, just by the way they put their foot down when they stop. Like it's that easy on a basketball court for me to walk on and be like, okay, this is gonna take some time. we're gonna get there.
Yep. Yeah, that's how the Cactus Adventures guy was for me. He put me on a evaluator trail, and it was fun. It was a flow trail, but then he was like, "Okay, now you can handle some
It was
chunk.
a qualifier. We call it qualifier.
Oh, yeah.
It was 100% a quality trail. And after that, it was the same thing. And then you can tell when they're having more fun because you get the corporate, not knocking it, corporate gigs for everybody in whatever industry you're in. If you're a service provider in the and you have a corporate, you take the money. But it's going to come with a lot of challenges, and one of those is personal boredom. That's just reality. But you could tell, like, he was like, "Oh, this is not a personal. This isn't a corporate gig." Like this dude. And then 3 weeks later, I was looking at his Instagram, and you could see it was like, "Oh, there's a corporate gig." It's a bunch of dudes. But you have to have that kind of stuff to make it fun. Do you find the same thing if somebody starts riding and they push you a little bit to like? And you're like, oh, wait a second. Now is that a natural inclination?
I mean, look, and truthfully, it is all fun because like smiles on people's faces is what I get my rocks off on. But yes, absolutely. And sometimes, and look, I turned 50 this year. And so like, I'm not looking to hit 60-foot tabletops too much anymore. So like, but there's a lot of good riders and these kids are coming out here. They're doing these things. I'm like, I got to find my limits. I can teach you how to do that, but I might not do that anymore. Right.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
You notice he left that caveat very much anymore.
Yeah.
Like, so occasionally he might just get juicy and hit a 60-footer.
The difference between a fathlete and an athlete is
there's no
I'm
end.
definitively done doing that, whereas you guys are going to be like 70 and like,
well, it's because
once a year.
Our minds can still do it. Our bodies just can't. Somebody like just before I left when I moved here was like, "Hey, can you still dunk?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I went up and was like, bam, straight off the front. Like, I walked home. Casey's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I tried to dunk today."
Yeah, in your mind, you still can do everything, but not so much.
Obviously, you're a fit fellow, and I'll wrap it up with some of this stuff. But you're a fit fellow. What is your secret for mountain bike fitness? What is the best fitness trick you got?
So it's a 3-pronged approach. So I got a trainer. He sends me a workout twice a week. I'm in the gym. And it's not like crazy. It's not like CrossFit or anything. It's a lot of motion, a lot of movement, a lot of and then as we grow older, the number one thing that we move is our quickness, those fast twitch muscles. So we do a lot of footwork and do a lot of jumps and all of that kind of stuff. And then riding in zone 2 is probably the best thing. There's all kind of research that comes out on that. It helps you live longer. And then I once a week at least, I'll hit it hard, and it's intervals. I've got to make sure I still have it where I'm hitting a technical trail fast, and I still got to make sure I can react.
Meaning like heart rate bouncing up pretty high, like
very
aggressively,
high.
Almost like racing it.
Yep,
right? Like
yep. Almost at race pace we try to do it. So I try to hit those runs, and also even cross country. Like I'll try to, whenever you're getting your heart rate up so high, you're not thinking like normal all the time. So I still want to make sure I can react under those situations.
That's good.
Yeah, I run for that.
Yeah, you run an excessive amount.
I did a 180 heartbeat minute run yesterday.
Oh.
4 miles under 30 minutes.
Somebody would have to be chasing me
just to get.
I'm not running.
Just to get my I ran this week quota for the podcast. I know people look for it.
And when Dale runs, he runs in running tri shoes.
Yeah, I do run in running tri shoes. I should just wear that on my shirt.
Yes, you should.
Did we want to give away some merch?
Or
was that gifts for us?
No. Well, either way, whatever you want. So I just got the text that my hats are coming in. So I definitely will give away a hat. And,
I have to have one.
I got 2 shirts, and then I got 2 large shirts. And if somebody wins that and they need another size, I'll have another order coming in. So 2 shirts, a hat, and then I got 2 Gatorade water bottles, and I'll have 2 Summit water bottles too coming up.
Oh, those are sweet. That was the contest you said share those out. Was it those?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah, they're dope AF, dude. That's like a legit. If we're giving that away, someone's going to be doing something fun.
So give me. I need some orders. I need to put that on order. So just make sure you give me some time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's do a shirt and a bottle.
Okay, what do they got to do?
I don't know. We got to come up with that part. This is real
sign
time.
Up for a summit class.
That's good.
Yeah,
get a shirt and a bottle.
You get a bottle if you sign up anyway. So you can give them
free bottle with every purchase.
Everybody's qualified for this giveaway except for Eric Hagan.
Yeah, Eric Hagan is not
you win
in.
everything. Eric.
So
joking, Eric.
What about creating a video that shows you help somebody in mountain
There you
bike?
go.
Yeah, there you go.
Even better.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Just or a photo.
Photo.
We'll go
Yes.
either way it works because that way we see something.
Photo's easier. Yeah.
Yeah, but video is better. Video is more engagement. I'd rather be a video. So you'll get more The three of us will judge it. In fairness, you're going to get more bias towards a video than you will a photo, and then you get a bottle and a shirt, and we'll go with that.
Let's give them like 3 weeks to do it. 'Cause we know that they're a little slow.
Yeah, we'll do it. Well, this is the weird. We got multiple episodes dropping within the same week. We didn't want to wait on this, so we dropped one yesterday.
Okay.
And then we're dropping this today.
Oh, today. Oh, wow.
Yeah, or tomorrow.
It's your timeline. You said. I'm not putting
You're
myself.
fast now.
That's correct. I'm
He
not.
said
Wait, you got to go
I'm
back
not-
and edit and make sure I sound good.
No.
No.
We don't edit.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
point click.
So,
It's
folks,
basically
this
You
is
didn't
live.
not
say anything
edited.
offensive this time. Like I
Basically
didn't.
live.
I'm just kidding.
This time.
You're good. You're a good boy this time. No, you're not. You're not named Bug, and you're not named Todd, and you're not named Jakey Poo. Basically, you're not any other member of the Reb.
No.
Somewhere there's one guy saying like, "Well, I wouldn't say anything bad if you'd have me on."
That's why you're not on.
You got to blend in a little bit, man.
Dale's gotten his cue to cut to. That was perfect. I cut right
I
to you.
can't
Right?
see it
I know,
right now,
but you
and I
did
don't
it
know.
naturally. I knew it. I
Okay,
knew I was going to tee it up for it. Toby, is there anything else you want to share before we go ride the trails?
No, man, I really appreciate everything you guys doing for the mountain bike community in the area. And look, if you're watching this, bring some more people into the sport, invite some people to the sport and enjoy it. And if I could ever help in anything, whether it's building trails or come and do a clinic, a spot that you want me to come do a clinic, I'd be more than happy to. And of course, it's shredwithsummit.com if you need some more information.
Yep, head over there. They're official sponsors, so now we get to come up with all the obnoxious jokes possible to see how many times we can do it. So excited. We've been teeing it for weeks, saying like, you reached your summit of comedy, and we've been like saying stupid shit.
Yeah, I know all my friends are like, dude, did you hear? I was like, of course I heard it. Yes.
They're just they're actually people that I put over there to make sure you're listening.
Oh, God.
Oh, of course I am.
Just playing.
Well, with that said, don't forget you can head on over to shredwithsummit.com to see where the next classes are. You can also follow them on social. Is it all the same on
same
social?
Shred with Summit.
On social. Head over there as well. Thank you, Toby, for hanging out with us.
No, I enjoyed it.
And just remember what Dale Boyd says.
Shred with Summit, baby.
Cool. So you need your climax.
I know. I was thinking.